Welcome to Agape Social Justice, where we focus on love, truth, and justice. We are doing a part 2 or follow-up episode with Kimber Bishop-Yanke, who, if you recall, she was on season 1, episode 3, and we talked about the house being on fire as it relates to the housing crisis. We know this is a national issue. We know we have a statewide issue in Michigan, but we talked specifically about some of the issues that are happening with people whom we've helped right here in our own backyard in Oakland County. And at that time, we asked Kimber if she'd come back, give us an update, let us know what's going on. And so Kimber's back. So thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you for having me again.
Yeah, absolutely. So last time you were here, you went through your whole introduction, talked about how you got started, so I won't have you do that again today. I will remind people that you are the chair of the Oakland County Poverty and Homelessness Task Force, which is focusing on this issue and bringing people together in Oakland County. And you are connected to elected officials who work on the statewide Poverty and Homelessness Committee, right?
Task force
with the state. And then you have a nonprofit called Kids Empowered on the Move, which is how you've been helping people who have found themselves in this situation, right?
Yes.
Yes. So I want to talk a little bit about what you see happening on the ground right now. So the last time we spoke, we talked about how, people were being routed to one particular number. Sometimes when you call that number, you get service, but many times you don't because there are organizations who want to be removed off the list, don't know they're still on the list. Some of the organizations actually don't have the funding available anymore because now COVID is over. Last time we spoke, that was December of last year. It's now October, going into November of 2023. So kind of give us an update on where we are now with this situation.
Yeah, so one of the things that happened is that when COVID was over, a lot of evictions started happening. And that was for a couple of reasons. One is a lot of people's leases expired, and because there's a housing shortage, their rents went up $400, $500, $600, but their paycheck did not go up.
Right.
So unfortunately, a lot of people got evicted. And now I believe the homelessness situation for families is more dire than it ever was. And we have all of these families that have evictions on their record. And there's a lot of landlords that will not take evictions or poor credit, or if somebody might have a past criminal history. Mm-hmm. So we have a lot of people that are unhoused, and if they are able, like let's say they're working, we have some families that are paying for their hotel, but under the HUD definition, because they're paying for their own hotel, they cannot access to get on the homelessness waiting list. And so we've had some families that have been in the hotel for 2 years. Wow. And are stuck. They're stuck.
So let's talk about what that means when you're ineligible for services. What does that mean that they're denied access to?
So if our nonprofit put a family in a hotel, or any other nonprofit, or HUD's definition of homelessness is being in a shelter, on the streets, in the car, or a hotel paid for by a nonprofit, then you can apply for a housing voucher. And if you get picked for a housing voucher, then you have to find the house or the apartment, which is a challenge for many families. But you pay a percentage of your income towards the house, and then the rest is subsidized.
Mm-hmm. When you say if you get picked, what does that mean?
Well, there's hundreds of people waiting in line, so they're only picking so many people every month to receive vouchers. But the truth of the matter is 2 out of 3 vouchers get returned because people cannot find the landlord that will accept that voucher. So one of the things that we've been working on since we spoke last is we're developing relationships with landlords, and we're actually working on trying to bring some elected officials together, landlord together, and streamline a process, because the landlords are having the same issue we're seeing, is that how long it takes to actually fill out the paperwork, to get picked, then to start looking for the house, and then you have to fill out another packet of information. And the landlord has to fill out another packet of information, and then there has to be an inspection. And what we found is, it's pretty complicated. The paperwork is very confusing. And let's say you miss a box, or like one family we had, the mom put her name where the dad's name should have gone. Every little mistake was, okay, 2 more weeks.
Wow.
That seemed to be the standard answer. And then when the inspection finally happens, in this one particular case, the inspector found 3 little things that were wrong, and the landlord would have taken care of them that day, but it was 2 weeks. And then there were 2 more appointments that no inspector showed up for. So 2 more weeks, inspection, no inspector showed up. Another 2 weeks to get another inspector, no, they didn't show up. And then we finally got a new inspector 2 more weeks later who found 3 new things. And again, these are things that are not dangerous, like the sliding door, didn't slide smoothly. The banister was a little, shaky, but nothing that was like life-threatening.
So are these issues that would disqualify the person from being able to use the voucher there?
Well, at that point, the house is not past the inspection until.
Wow.
So what's happening is, one, landlords, are losing out funds, because they could easily take a paying client and put them in the house right away, because somebody who's looking for housing is not going to be like, oh, that sliding door is not working properly, so I'm going to, wait 2 more weeks. They're going to say, well, I'll take that place. So what we're hoping that legislation might get passed so that minor repairs, the homeless family can move into the house, and then minor repairs have to be taken care of like in 2 months or something. But let's not keep a family in trauma. People lose their jobs, they lose, kids are often struggling to go to school. The schools are struggling to send transportation. It's not like you can call your school district and say, oh, I'm homeless today and I'm, staying here, under the McKinney-Vento Act.
Right.
The school district has to send transportation, but that can take a week or 2 weeks to happen. And so we have all these kids that their lives are upside down, and they can't get to school, and they can't have any kind of normalcy.
So I'm just kind of struck by you walking through this scenario, knowing that there's already like 15, 20 other scenarios that we talked about before and that we're kind of living through as we walk people through this process. And I feel like every time we talk, there's one more barrier that we discover. And I feel like you've done a really good job. Other people have done a good job in trying to highlight these issues, talk about the barriers. What's the response that you're getting now from, one, the organizations who get most of the funding to address this issue? Whether it's the continuum of care, who's assigned by the federal government to do this, our larger shelters, organizations who provide care, as well as our elected officials. Like, what's the response that you're getting now?
Well, I have found a couple elected leaders that are very interested in making change. So they are working on these issues, which I feel very thankful for. But I would say that, what's a little frustrating to me is that people are pretty resistant to change. I guess that's our human nature. And they don't like it when somebody points out, like, why is this taking so long? And why does the person in need have to fill out, 30 packets of information? So every single time, so like one of this particular family, we found a house that seemed great, and then we found out that because of utilities, the amount of the voucher, it was not clear, it was not marked on the voucher that there had to be so much for utilities, and so then they got denied. And not only was that frustrating for the landlord, it's frustrating for the family in need, and it took a whole month, set us back a whole month. So, and then you have to fill out a whole new packet when you find the next house. And that same landlord, this family moved into this particular house, that landlord had to fill out a new packet. So I just feel like, like if somebody's submitting some documents like one time, why can't there be like addendums, instead of having to do packets, complete packets over and over, and provide birth certificates and social security cards and driver's license repeatedly. It's just a lot. If you can imagine being homeless, you don't have space. Some people are in their car. They can't keep track of all of this paperwork.
Right. It's not like they're running around with a spreadsheet or a notebook keeping track of all of these organizations. My question is this. Is this a federal regulation to do it this way, or is this an internal process for each organization? Like, is this something we could, like, next week say, okay, we're all in agreement, this is too much, we're going to change the process? Is there a legal right to do that?
I think at every level, federal, state, and local, there are changes that could be made. But there is different barriers at every level.
Okay.
Yeah. And so we're learning by going through these processes. Like, even though I've been helping families do this, I have volunteers. So I hadn't gone through sort of the paperwork process, and this particular family showed how many barriers were along the way. And then, of course, I started speaking out against those barriers. Another thing that I just learned is we have a situation where the heat got turned off, and there's a baby in the house.
Okay.
And in this particular house, there's windows that are broken. We are trying to get code enforcement out. They couldn't identify the landlord. The landlord won't respond, and they're responsible. This family's on a voucher, and so I got the grandmother an appointment, and it turned out before she could get help, she had to fill out an SER, which I don't even know what that stands for, but I think it stands for state emergency, maybe. I'm not really sure. And so this is a person who can barely function. Like, she can barely get through the day. And it took her a week and a half to fill it out. And then, and this happened yesterday. I found out she filled it out, and DHS approved her amount, but she had to then come back to the organization to fill out more paperwork to apply for the rest of the money to get her heat turned back on.
Wow.
And so yesterday I was like on the phone trying to just figure out how to make it happen, because we've already had some cold nights, and there's a baby in the house.
Right.
So I wish that she had done the SER when she went to apply for it in the first place, right in that office, because this is a person who doesn't have a computer. That's overwhelming to her. So we want to really walk people through these processes. I mean, I know that when I have to fill out paperwork, it's overwhelming.
Listen, I'm not in the situation right now, and I needed to fill out some medical paperwork. It was actually to see a genetic doctor. And I thought, oh, I'll be able to fill it out. I've been so busy. And then I went and looked at it and it was like 50 pages. And I was like, there's no way. And then it required all this additional information that I don't know, offhand. And so I can only imagine what it's like when you don't fully understand what people are asking for. There's a full packet. You don't have all your documents you need to attach to it. And for me, I don't understand how we can say we care and we don't streamline the process. Like, I've been on multiple calls that you've had explaining this. I've been in different meetings, and I just can't grasp why we're still talking about the same thing a year later. And I know for you it's multiple years, but it's like, we talked about this a year ago. Why hasn't this been fixed? And why don't we take the time to say, I know this person doesn't have a computer. I know this person took 3 buses to get to the DHS office or whatever the situation is. Why don't I, as a DHS worker, contact the organization or vice versa, right? So that somebody is just picking up ownership to help the family. Like, I don't understand why it's so difficult if we say that we care. And I think what's also frustrating is that for advocates like me, if you're in the room and you say this, people take offense. Mm-hmm. All of a sudden you have a label attached to you because how dare you, try to, 1, expose, and 2, imply we don't care. And it's like, I'm not saying you don't care, but can we care enough just to make the change? That's all I want to see. Right. And I think that's the same thing for you and everybody else I know who's advocating for families. So my hope is that people will begin to just see, like, we don't want to keep talking about these same things over and over. We don't want people to continue to experience the trauma. Right. We talked about the last time you were here that there was a process being worked on to streamline and to have kind of a one-stop shop. Mm-hmm. And I hear you saying even now, like, that would kind of help right now, like with the one-stop shop. Can you tell us quickly, like, where are we in that process? Is that done now?
Well, so I was probably talking about the app that I am hoping that will eventually get developed, and that is in the works. Okay. But some other organizations kind of took it over, and so it might be longer. Okay. So we started working on sort of a physical version of the app, and we're hoping to open up, in the next 45 days. Okay. But it's a collaboration, and it's called the Helping Network. And the idea is that a person can walk in or call one number, and we're going to have navigators, volunteers, and the navigator is going to make those phone calls, connect that person, and make sure they actually get the help they need. Okay. And then we have a professional fundraiser actually raising funds. So we're really hoping to have more funds to help pay deposits and car repairs and back rent to prevent evictions, and hotel rooms for people who are homeless, because we don't have enough shelter beds in our county. It's just a fact.
Can you just tell people really quickly how many beds there are in the shelter? Because there's this misconception out there.
Yeah, and it's funny because I've started asking people how many, shelters do you think we have in Oakland County? And people are like 10, 12. Mm-hmm. And no, we have one adult shelter, 60 beds. Men and women have to share in the same room. It's a big room. And it's a great organization that does it. We have one family shelter, 18 spots. We have a domestic violence shelter, which is always full. And all these shelters are always full, actually. But the long line of domestic violence victims is long. And then we have a temporary warming center that happens in Royal Oak with about 10 churches for, I think it's about 3.5 months, that the Welcome In is a day center, and then the guests go to a church that hosts it for a week to 2 weeks, and then they get a meal and they get a place to sleep. Okay. So that's all we have. And I learned that, I'm trying to think of what state were bigger than, I think it was, I just heard we are as big as, was it Rhode Island? But, we're as big as some states. Oakland County is as big as some states.
Wow.
And so we
and that's why there are hundreds of people
Yeah.
not being served.
Mm-hmm.
Wow. Well, I wanted you to share that to give context to people before we close out, because sometimes I feel like the issue is so abstract or so big that people can't really zone in on why are we saying this is a crisis? That's because there are hundreds of people not being serviced. Why are we saying that we need more organizations like yours to get the funding and get involved? Not because we're against or we're anti anyone else, but it's because the number of people who aren't being serviced,
That's
right? And I think for me, one, let's do this before we close out. Can you tell people how they can get information for the Helping Network?
Yeah, so the website's not up, the number's not up yet. So
Okay.
if anybody would like to get involved, they could definitely contact me. Would love it because part of this is we're looking for our whole community. We want to activate our whole community. Businesses, faith organizations, community leaders.
To join the Helping Network.
Yeah.
Okay.
So that's the cool thing that happened with my COVID response is that was a response to the pandemic where it activated everyday people and allowed them to help people in need. And so that's really how my organization is, expanded because we just got involved.
So what's your organization's website?
So it's kidsempoweredonthemove.org.
Okay.
And
people can reach out to you through that website.
Yes, or Kimber at kidsempowered.com.
Okay.
And then the number is 248-757-0912.
Okay.
And we're looking for people to deliver food, clothing, furniture. We're looking for people with expertise in accounting, finances, and then people to be on the ground, answering the phones, doing the intakes, calling, trying to find apartments, pretty much anything a family could use.
Right.
And we want to sort of do like a wraparound.
Right. The wraparound services approach is the only way to go at this point. I'm convinced there's no way to piecemeal this thing. We have to have a full process from beginning to end. And I think people are worthy enough and deserve for us to give them this sort of treatment. I mean, this is America. This is where people come. And if we can't take care of our people who are here, I'm just kind of at a loss for words at this point if we don't do it. So we will continue to promote your organization. Obviously, we will make sure we share that information on social media. We have people who tune in, on Sundays to watch. We will continue to show, your interviews and the work. And one of the other things we'll show is the documentary trailer that you were very instrumental in helping us with. And as we close out, I just want to tell our listening audience, our viewing audience, Kimber helped us find people to interview for this short documentary that our family worked on. We worked with Burke Video, and we had people who came and shared their stories. We're calling it the hidden faces of homelessness because oftentimes people have this perception of the bum on the street, and they don't realize that it's people just like you and I, right? How Kimber and I can be, sometimes one paycheck away. Kimber has invested over $100,000 to do the work and help communities. And you just never know what's going to happen in whatever your situation is. And so we're trying to show the faces of people who are going through this, who are coming out of this. Some of the people are going through it again because of the way the system works. And so we want you to tune in. Go to our social media pages. I've already posted the trailer. I will be posting it at the end of this interview, and we'll post it again. Also want you to do something else. If you are local, if you are in Michigan, come meet Kimber. Come talk to Kimber. She's going to be one of our panelists for the screening that we're going to do for the documentary. We'll have a panel discussion afterwards. But definitely go to our website, look her up. If you're local, come join us for the screening. You'll find that information online. And as always, let us know how you're willing to help. We're here for you. We're here for the community. Spread the word. And until next time, share this video. Please share the video with someone. Thank you so much for tuning in.
Homelessness is a crisis that affects millions of Americans every year. But for some, it's more than just a temporary setback. It's a life sentence. In this documentary, we'll shine a light on the hidden world of homeless people and explore the challenges they face every day. From the streets of Detroit to the halls of government, we'll follow the stories of those who are fighting for change and ask the question, why are we failing our most vulnerable citizens?
And they cannot get the help because we have so many different organizations replicating themselves but not necessarily dealing with the issue at hand. Then it leaves this big gaping hole, and we need to work on a solution by bringing all of these stakeholders together and identifying the problem and have a single pass-through that serves the people who are in this condition.
You know, we have been talking to a lot of people at every level in this business, and some of them are not aware of all the paperwork, and it's just over and over you keep running into these walls.
I think I would feel better if we was to call 211 and they don't hang up or stop trying to help you until they know you are safe. That would be great. Like, if they only way y'all hang up is if they know you will be safe.
Hey, Agape Social Justice family. Thank you so much for tuning in every Sunday at 8:30 p.m. We appreciate it. And as we told you before, we would have a merch store, and we do. This is our V-neck ladies shirt, and you can find this on agapesocialjustice.com. This is our logo, and it says love, truth, and justice, which is what you know we stand for. We also have a mug, and we have the logo on the mug. You can find this on the website as well as a phone case, a pen, a tote bag, and a number of other accessories, even a hoodie. You can find that on agapesocialjustice.com. Feel free to spread the word. Go to our social media on YouTube, Facebook, Instagram, and on X. We're Agape Social Justice. And so look for us there, and we thank you. We appreciate you. See you next time.
Hi there, Agape Social Justice family. My name is Walt Kreider, Stephanie's husband. Of course, you know about the show and what we stand for, but I got a real stupid question for you. How many of you were offended when you saw that of Tyree Nichols, as well as the other homicides that the police have created throughout our country? Well, we have created an organization called Police to Protectors. That's police, the number 2, protectors with an S.org. What do we stand for? It's all about transforming the police into that of the protectors. Because what do we care about in our communities? You know, we don't care about being police. We don't care about being ticketed. We care about being protected. And that's exactly what we're talking about in terms of reimagining what the police, what law enforcement, what our protectors can actually reflect and bring to our communities. So not only just join this effort, because yes, we need your support, but also we need your financial support. Check us out, police2protectors.org.